Okay, so when I first got Ray, I had to take
The
her to the
cat.
vet. My cat, yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
the cat.
I had to take her to the vet, right? So like she could get like her first checkup and like get spayed.
Okay.
And so the first day I was like getting stressed out because I was like trying to get everything together to bring her to the vet. It was like the night before we went. And then she was running around the bathroom while I'm brushing my teeth and she fell in the toilet.
And she's a small kitten, right?
She was a small she jumped out like right away. But she like
Oh,
I was like the night before the vet and I had to clean her up. So she like I was like,
it's like
oh my
toilet water.
gosh. Yeah. I was
So she was
like,
was she on the
no.
was she on the top of the tank?
No, so what she did was like so in my apartment the bathtub was like right next to the toilet.
Mhm.
So she would be running around like the edge of the bathtub and she'd jump from that to the because I always like close the seat on the toilet,
Yeah.
like the lid for it. So she'd jump from that to the lid to the sink and the lid wasn't closed one time.
Oh, did she fully go in there or did she, like, catch herself?
I think it was just her back legs because I think she caught
Okay,
herself if I remember
okay.
correctly. It wasn't like full body,
She
but it
wasn't
was
full diving in there, okay.
no, but it was so funny. It was like
Ugh.
at the time I was kind of like why, but now it's like it's really funny.
No, it's a funny story. Oh, man.
And that was like with the first like few weeks I had her too.
Mhm. Covered in toilet water.
Yep. And then another one, I was in the bathroom and the door was like kind of slightly open, and she was running around in circles chasing her tail. And she's this little kitten. The first like probably within the first month I had her,
Mhm.
and she's spinning around so fast, and then all of a sudden she whacks her face in the to the edge of the door, and it scared me so bad because she hit hard. She was chasing her tail
Oh.
so fast. I was so scared. She kind of like stopped and shook her head and kind of
Oh,
blinked. I was like, "Are
no.
you okay?" And she was fine. She just had like a little black eye for
A
like 2
concussion.
weeks.
Oh, man. Yeah, and then when other cats asked her what happened, she said, "Oh, I ran into the door.
Yeah, yep. I chased my tail, ran to the door.
I ran
Yep.
into the door."
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Oh man.
Can cats get concussions?
I'm sure they can. I
I'm
think
sure
anything
they
with the brain
can.
can.
And then I think
Yeah.
I think you're right. Anything with a brain, just get it.
You hit it, yeah.
Ooh,
She's
I mean, that's good.
fearless.
That's a good thing to be in life is fearless, right?
To an extent, because sometimes which so okay, so at my parents' house, we have so from like the living room to the basement, we have like this staircase that goes down to like a level, like a platform, and then down again. So it's like
Okay.
two staircases.
Yeah.
So there's been a few times where I've caught her trying to jump from the very top banister from the top part to go to the bottom, which is like 10 feet.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, so I've had to pick her up because like she's like looks over the edge of it, like on the banister, and looks down like she's gonna try to jump, and I
Do you
pick her up because like no, you
do
cannot
you
jump
think
that
she
far.
would?
Well, see, the reason why I think she would is because so there's another side that so right above like the midway platform, probably like 5 feet from the main level,
Mhm.
5 feet down. She jumps through the posts and the banister to that level. So she jumps through the posts down 5 feet. She did that. She figured out she could do this one day, and she did it like 3 times.
Oh my gosh. For fun?
For fun. Yeah, she was like, "Ooh, this is fun." So she just did it again and again.
I mean, at least they always land on their feet, but
Yeah.
dang,
Yeah. Yep.
that's a little daredevil. Oh my
Uh-huh.
gosh.
Yep.
Okay,
I have one more story if you want to listen to it.
I can handle one more.
Okay. So when I was moving out of my apartment, so when she was a kitten, she found a way to like get behind my refrigerator in my apartment. So like on the sides, there's like 4 inches of space on either side, and
Okay.
I'd like try to put stuff in like there so she wouldn't get behind
Yeah,
it, so she wouldn't get
block her
stuck.
off. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought she was like leaving it alone for a while. Well, when I
Little
was
did you know.
yeah, well, when I was moving out, like probably like 6 months later, so she was like a almost full grown, like
Mhm.
as she is now. And I had a storage room, so I was getting boxes that I stored in there, so I was bringing those back in. I walk in, I'm like, Ray, where are you? I look to my refrigerator, and she comes slinking out from behind the refrigerator, like I got caught. She looks at me like, oh crap. And it was so cute because she just like slowly slinks out from behind it and just looks at me with like side eye, kind of like, oh. It's really funny.
I thought it was gonna be like I went to the fridge to get something at whatever apple,
Okay.
opened it, all of a sudden I heard meowing coming from the back of the fridge.
No, not quite that bad. No, she always got like out of it. She used to jump to the top of the fridge. She jumped from when I was gone. She jumped from the stovetop that's across from the fridge to the top
Mhm.
of the fridge. And I figured this out because she left little kitty prints on the stainless steel.
Oh, that's so how far can cats jump?
I think it depends on the cat.
Okay.
Let me Google the average.
It's just, like, freaky, all of a sudden they'll be on the floor and you'll look up and they're on a bookcase.
Yeah, no, they're skilled jumpers
Mhm.
for hunting purposes. All right, so it says about the average cat can jump about 4 to 5 feet. So that's pretty
That's
accurate.
pretty good.
That's what I was kind of thinking. But yeah, she's a little daredevil. That's for sure.
Welcome to the Foolish Wanderers podcast.
Why must I be surrounded by fools?
Welcome, Wanderer.
Hey, Wanderers! Welcome back to the Foolish Wanderers podcast, the podcast about anything and everything. I'm Katrina, and like always, joined by my lovely co-host
Kendra.
And today we're wrapping up our spooky October season with an episode we're going to be discussing about Civil War ghosts. But first, we're going to be talking about the brief history of the jack-o'-lantern. So people have been making jack-o'-lanterns for centuries. However, the practice originated from an Irish myth about a man named Stingy Jack. So according to the story, Stingy Jack invited the devil to drink with him. So true to his name, Stingy Jack didn't want to pay for his drink, so he somehow convinced the devil to turn himself into a coin that Jack could use to pay for the drinks. Once the devil did so, Jack decided to keep the money and put it into his pocket next to his silver cross, which prevented the devil from changing back into his original form.
How does this get into a jack-o'-lantern?
We'll get into it. Okay. So Jack eventually freed the devil under the condition that he would not bother Jack for 1 year, and that should Jack die, he would not claim his soul.
Why wouldn't you 1 year, why wouldn't you make it forever?
I don't know.
Horrible game plan.
So the next year, Jack again tricked the devil into climbing into a tree to pick a piece of fruit. While he was up the tree, Jack carved a sign of the cross into the tree's bark so that the devil could not come down, until the devil promised Jack not to bother him for 10 more years.
Okay, so he's getting better at
He's
negotiating.
getting smarter, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep. So soon after that, Jack died, and as the legend goes, God would not allow such an unsavory figure into heaven, and then the devil, upset by the trick Jack had played on him and keeping his word not to claim his soul, would not allow Jack into hell. So Jack set off into the dark night, but with only a burning coal to light his way. So then Jack put the coal into a carved out turnip and has been seen roaming the earth ever since.
He's in a turnip?
Well, the coal, the flaming coal, like his little lantern, yeah. Yep.
So he's a floating turnip that just wanders the earth for all of eternity?
Could you imagine just looking outside, just like, what is that? It's a glowing floating turnip. Okay, cool. Back to bed.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay.
So then the Irish began to refer to this ghostly figure as Jack of the Lantern, and then simply Jack-o'-lantern.
It should be Jack of the turnip.
Well, the turnip was like his lantern because he put the burning coal in it, so it's like lighting is must like easier to hold, I guess. Not hot. Yeah, it's a lantern.
Weird.
So in Ireland and Scotland, people began to make their own versions of jack-lanterns by carving scary faces into turnips or potatoes and then placing them onto windows or near doors to frighten away Stingy Jack and other wandering evil spirits.
Can you imagine seeing a potato with a carved face in it? Those things are so small.
They're actually really creepy. I'll put some photos up on Instagram at Foolish Wanderers Podcast. But they're these things, they look, I don't know if you've ever seen like when people carve little faces like into apples and let it shrink. It's like really old Granny Smith faces, they call them.
I've seen those before to
Yeah,
try
they're
and make it look like
creepy.
it's the voodoo heads.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're creepy. They're just like weird little minions. Some of these are like pretty creepy, but they're supposed to scare away like the evil spirits. So they're supposed to look creepy. So in Switzerland, children will leave out bowls of milk or cream out for mythical house spirits called Jacko the Bowl. In England, large beets are used. And then immigrants from these countries brought the jack-o'-lantern tradition with them when they came to the US.
Mm-hmm.
They soon found that pumpkins, a fruit native to America, made perfect jack-o'-lanterns.
Way
So that's how we get
better.
pumpkins instead of turnips and potatoes.
Thank God.
Yeah, what do you think of those photos, Kendra?
Those are way more terrifying than
The pumpkins.
it just is like a radish with a face on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the weird part to me is like they individually cut out the teeth, so they have like a full set of dentures in them.
Yeah, all these people, these are terrifying.
They're supposed to scare away like evil spirits. So
They scare away live ones too.
gold met. Good.
That's creepy. No thanks. No thanks. Thank goodness they found jack-o'-lanterns, cause jeez.
Yeah, the pumpkins, pumpkin jack-o'-lanterns. Because
Mhm.
technically these are all the turnips and stuff are still jack-o'-lanterns, but they're just not pumpkins.
That was interesting. I didn't think
You didn't think there was that much to it?
yeah, I didn't think there was that much to it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like when you start like learning about the little nuances of traditions and stuff. It's cool.
Thank you, Stingy Jack.
All right, should we get into some creepy ghost stories?
From the Civil War?
Yeah.
Yes, we should. Honestly, I should have looked up when the Civil War was. Totally forgot what years. I think it's 1863 to something. I'm gonna Google it.
61 through 65.
Wow, I was off. Okay. So, the Civil War happened between the time period of 1861 and 1865
Mhm.
in the United States of America. And it was bloody, and that's it. I couldn't think of something that whatever. The
It was
Civil War is horrible.
it was bloody and like medical practices were not up to code. Like they were that's at least from like my research from like finding all these ghost stories
Mhm.
have to do with like the medical stuff. And I always get sick to my stomach a little bit just thinking about what these people had to go through. Not only like the soldiers, but like the doctors and stuff. Like what happened. Like they like yeah,
Traumatic.
very
There's
traumatic.
not really pain meds or
Hmm.
I don't even think there's anesthesiology. Like there's not anesthesia really, except
I don't think so.
like chloroform, the
Yeah, they use
chloroform
that.
rag.
Yeah,
But still,
for some people didn't even get anything because they
uh-uh.
ran out. So it's oh
Bite down on this piece of old leather.
oh yeah. No,
Okay.
it's terrible, terrible time.
So we're first going to talk about like, Gettysburg, Ghost of Gettysburg, and stuff like that, because I think if anyone knows anything about the Civil War, they can always like associate Gettysburg with the Civil War, right?
Yeah, that's like the most
It's
known.
like
Yeah.
the most known, not the bloodiest battle, but the most like well known Gettysburg, and then of course Abraham Lincoln, the president at that time, did the Gettysburg Address. So famous stuff happened in Gettysburg. And when
Mhm.
I went there when I was probably 18 years old, I think.
Oh, cool.
And it was kind of cool, but also very lame because
Oh no.
it's just fields and
Oh yeah.
you get to see like old cannons it's mostly monuments.
Mhm.
And the museum for Gettysburg was kind of neat because they have this, I don't remember the term for it anymore, but it's this huge, I think it's like sort of like a diorama. I don't really know, but it's this huge mural painting of the Battle of Gettysburg. And it's you go in this room and it's the whole wall and the ceiling, and they have lights, kind of like a show. They have lights that shine on certain areas with sound
Oh, cool.
effects.
Okay.
That is really cool. That was
Huh.
neat. But yeah, the field itself is just a field.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so this little excerpt that I'm going to read is from a book that I have. It's really cool. It's called Terrible But True: Awful Events in American History, and it's by Dina Williams
Okay.
or Dinah. I don't know how you say it, but maybe
Probably
Dina.
Dina.
I'd
Yeah.
want to be Dinah because then it's like, isn't it Dinah blow your horn? Is that from the song?
I think so.
Dinah blow your horn,
I
Dinah
think
blow your
so.
horn. Yeah. Dinah's cooler, but whatever. Good book. Okay, so this is from Terrible But True.
Okay.
So, for 3 days in July of 1863, more than 150,000 Union and Confederate soldiers clashed in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It was one of the bloodiest battles ever, with more than 50,000 killed, wounded, or missing. After the battle, nearly 2,000 Union and 3,000 Confederate wounded soldiers were too hurt to be sent to military hospitals. On July 22nd, 1863, more than 400 tents from Camp Letterman Hospital were set up on the battlefield to care for them. Quote, shrieks, cries, and groans resounded on all sides, one nurse
Oof.
wrote, not only from those in the tents, but on the amputating tables, which were almost constantly occupied. End quote. Terrible injuries and infections took their toll, and soon more than 1,200 were buried in the camp cemetery. And this is another little thing that I found doing research. Because so many Confederate soldiers were never buried properly, leaving many bodies left in unfinished or poorly made, like shallow graves.
Mhm.
Like ghost experts and psychics and stuff, they say that their spirits are more prone to wandering the earth until they can find rest.
Aw.
So,
I mean, I
yeah.
guess, yeah, if your body still isn't, like, laid to rest technically. Yeah.
That's what I came across.
Yeah.
Okay, so where were we? The hospital finally closed on November 20th, 1863, and a nurse at the camp named Sophronia E. Buckland wrote, the hospital tents were removed, each bare and dust-trampled space marking where the corpse had lain after death agony was past, and where the wounded had groaned in pain. Tears filled my eyes when I looked in that great field. End
Mm.
quote. So today, Gettysburg is considered one of the most haunted places in America. The ghosts of many soldiers who failed to survive have often been spotted on the former battlefield. One, a young, legless man, appears to a guest at a motel that was built over a site of heavy fighting. I
Oh,
couldn't really
wow.
figure out what motel that was, but I got some other stuff too.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing too with, like, with this time, I read that, like, the doctors, since there's so many people injured, like, so many men injured, like, if you were just shot, you weren't looked at, like, unless your leg was, like, broken and, like, needed to be
Mhm.
amputated, they just
Yeah.
let you to die. And there's no blood transfusions, there's
No.
yeah, so it's just oh.
Again, remember Gettysburg is one of the most haunted sites. There's a
Mhm.
place that ghosts seem to gather the most in Gettysburg, and that's called Devil's Den.
Okay.
What a fitting, creepy name.
Yeah. Yep.
On the second day of the Battle of Gettysburg, this outcropping saw some of the Civil War's most vicious battles, with more than 51,000 casualties. It explains the high number of ghosts that lurked the area. So, hunters who became lost in the boulder maze reported a soldier pointing out the way to them. One particularly holdover is a barefooted man who can be seen walking about Devil's Den. He's wearing a bright shirt and a floppy hat. The uniform is one they think of from Texas.
Okay.
And so he's a Texas soldier.
Is it
And he utters out but one phrase, what you're looking for is over there. What he's referring to may never be known. So they think he's from Texas because Texas was a faraway outpost at the time, and many soldiers from there often did not receive sufficient clothing, and they lacked shoes. They didn't get
That's really
shoes all the time.
sad.
I know it's really
Oh.
sad.
They came all this way, and it's like they don't even get shoes.
I know.
Yeah.
Another ghost appears suffering from a gigantic chest wound. And there's been one woman ghost sitting who claims to have been grabbed by a soldier,
Ugh.
as well as a ghost rider who disappears into thin air. So this Devil's Glen is just like these huge boulders, sort of.
Okay, so it's just, like, kinda like a canyon kind of a thing? Or
Nah, I don't think a canyon. I got a picture on it on this slide. It's just a big boulderous area.
oh, okay.
Okay, this next one that I've got, it's called Bloody Lane. It's in Antietam, which was the famous battle.
Mhm.
So even the U.S. Department of Transportation has declared Bloody Lane the centerpiece of the Civil War's bloodiest day of battle, and that happened on September 17th in 1862 on Antietam Creek near the small town of Sharpsburg, Maryland. So it's super haunted, people.
With a
After
name like that, yeah, you kinda
it's
expect it.
Bloody Lane, oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So some 23,000 men were wounded, killed, or missing in action by the end of the day.
Ugh.
Yeah. The lane is always church quiet, no matter how many people are around. Visitors walking along hear phantom gunfire and smell gunpowder. And some have reported seeing Confederate soldiers who seem to be reenactors,
Mhm. Yeah.
those old guys that like to,
Yeah.
reenact the battles. And then if you get shot, you have to lay there for the
Yeah.
rest of the battle.
Yep, yep.
So so tourists see people like that, and they're like, "Oh, they're doing a reenactment," and then
Makes
they
sense,
just
yeah.
disappear. out of thin air.
Yeah.
So the most famous sighting was by schoolboys who heard singing that sounded like a Christmas carol and later determined to be the Gaelic battle cry. I'm going to butcher this, but Fág á Balag?
Let
Or,
me
or
let me
it
Google.
it just means clear the way,
Okay.
but it's in Gaelic.
In Gaelic. Okay.
I'm sorry, but I don't speak Gaelic.
Foch e balach. That's what it sounds like.
That's really
Google.
It's a really guttural. It sounds like you have something stuck in your throat.
It does, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
but anyway, it means
Foch e
clear the way. It's in Gaelic, so people think that they hear it.
Hmm.
Oh, I've got this. It's not a ghost, but it's pretty eerie, and I thought it was kind of like a neat little tidbit.
Okay.
So this is about glow in the dark wounds at the Battle of Shiloh.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
So during the Battle of Shiloh in April of 1862, more than 16,000 soldiers were wounded.
Oh.
The huge number of injuries meant that many men had to lie in the mud for 2 rainy days,
Oh.
waiting for help from the overworked medics.
Oh wow.
So lying there, some noticed their wounds began to glow. Those that glowed seemed to heal faster than those that didn't, and no one understood what was happening, so they called it angel's glow.
Huh.
So the mystery wasn't solved until 2001 when 2 high school students figured out that a good bacteria called Panellus stypticus transported to the wounds of the cold soldiers by insects caused the glow. The good bacteria fought the bad bacteria which was trying to infect the wounds.
Oh, that's interesting.
Uh-huh.
I guess like when I heard like glowing, at first I thought like the algae, like when you agitate it, there's like a blue algae
Yeah.
that glows. So that's cool. I like that.
I thought it was kind of eerie. It's spooky.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Not ghosts,
I mean,
but it's very spooky.
yeah. So the first one that I'll talk about would be Kolb's Farm, I believe is how you pronounce it, in Marietta, Georgia.
Mhm.
So almost as soon as the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain, or Kennesaw?
I think it's
Is it
Kennesaw.
Kennesaw? Okay, Kennesaw Mountain ended in June 1864. People began reporting stories of ghostly soldiers on the battlefield and hearing sounds of gunshots and cannon fire. So, like right after the battle ended.
Mhm.
Sometimes visitors can still smell the metallic scent of blood and death. One father and son driving through the battlefield park were confronted by a uniformed man on his horse and realized he was a ghost. The father slammed on his brakes, and as the apparition approached them, getting so close, the pair could see that his Union uniform and his saber before he vanished through the fence across the road. In one housing development built on the battlefield, the ghosts of soldiers have visited in the darkness of night, while one mischievous ghost moved into one house, making his presence known by slamming doors and dropping coins on the floor.
What a
But
jerk.
I guess like it says that the owners have come to terms with their ghost and he doesn't do much else. So I mean, if it's not like messing with like I don't know, like your TV, like your lights and stuff all the time, like I guess like yeah, dropping a few coins, not
Slamming doors would make me mad.
yeah, I guess that one is a little bit more aggressive, but
It's not okay in my house.
no
No,
slamming
no
doors.
slamming doors. Yeah, that's just one thing that I kept coming across. So when there'd be a big battle during the Civil War, basically soldiers and the medics and whatever else, they would just take over the town or houses.
Yeah, yep.
And then that's where they would be makeshift like hospitals, where the soldiers would sleep. They would just take them over, and that's where
Mhm.
like all like a lot of the ghosts are just present to this day.
Yeah, yep. Well, what did they call that when they just like took over people's houses? There's like a term for it. I don't remember it right now.
I don't remember it either, but I think we learned it in
This is like a
this.
history class.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Revolutionary War. It's like
Yeah,
it's like on the Bill of Rights or something where you
yeah,
housing the soldiers, whatever.
yeah.
It's supposed to be illegal, but
Hmm.
meh, I guess not when it comes to the Civil War.
Alright, what you got?
Oh, I thought it was interesting, but it's not ghostly, but it's 3 minute. It's about since we were talking about how horrible and crude the medics and, medicine was at that time.
Mhm.
I found something about amputations. And it's
Oh,
called
okay.
3-minute amputations.
Oh man, okay.
So at the time of the Civil War, doctors they didn't understand how infection spread.
Which to me is crazy, right? Because it's like it's not that long ago,
Yeah.
and like you'd think, I don't know. I guess like they still didn't really understand that like fabrics could hold on to bacteria more. That's why like I think
Mhm.
didn't like bathrooms used to have like carpeted floors and stuff.
Yeah, in like the 70s, there's still some like gross
That's
ones.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
gross,
that's
gross,
true.
gross.
Yeah, it's just amazing too, like how they didn't at that time know how infection spread.
Well, just be thankful that they know now.
I know, yeah. So we've come a long way in
A
actually not a lot of
long
time.
uh-huh. So, yeah, so they since they didn't understand infection, how the infection spread, a simple, like, wound that you got
Mhm.
could end up killing a soldier.
Yeah, yep.
So on the battlefield, surgeons often had very little time to treat injuries because amputations were so common.
Ugh.
So common. Like, that was their answer for everything.
Mhm.
Approximately 30,000 amputations were performed during the war.
That's oof.
Surgeons would work around the clock and on the battlefield, and they didn't have that many surgeons or
Mhm.
medics during this time.
Yeah, yep.
The average amputation on a field they performed them with dull surgical knives. It took about 12 minutes with dull surgical knives.
Oh, wow.
And I
That's a
just
long time.
It's a long time, but just I mean, they're just like dull surgical just imagine
Mhm.
you have to constantly sharpen a blade to keep it sharp, but they're
Mhm.
doing so many of these things that they can't keep up with their knives.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see. A simple surgery of cutting off the leg at the knee could only take 3 minutes, but
You
by
mean to like they like bled out or something, or is like that's just how long it took?
that's just how long it took by the
Oh,
knee.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
By the end of the day, stacks of amputated limbs could be 5 feet high.
Oh my gosh. I read
So
too those like they didn't clean their knives or anything either.
mm-mm.
So it's
There's no
just like
time.
no, which is and a lot of soldiers I read too that like they tried not to go to the doctors because like they knew like even like the smallest thing they just cut it off.
Mhm.
So like they'd avoid the doctor, which
Mhm.
is crazy. But I mean, yeah.
Um, the
Ugh.
the poet Walt Whitman saw it first. He saw it firsthand when visiting a battlefield in search of his brother. He wrote, "Quote: One of the first things that met my eyes in camp was a heap of feet, arms, legs, etc. under a tree in front of a hospital."
Oh. Could you imagine being a kid at this time too and seeing something like that?
No.
That'd scar you for life.
Oh yeah.
It still would for an adult, but I mean so next one I have is the Farnsworth House. The Farnsworth House, in as we know it to be called today, was used by Confederate soldiers as a hospital and impromptu headquarters during the Battle of Gettysburg. It was still riddled with bullet holes and eventually fell into Union forces, who stormed the building and killed the Confederate snipers who had been stationed there. Some of those soldiers are still there, and according to the Schultz family, who bought the property in 1972, some of them are caught in something like they think they're caught in like an infinite eternal loop,
Mhm.
where they're still like patrolling the same routes as like they did when they're alive. One of the soldiers is thought to be a sharpshooter that was stationed in the attic window and can be heard playing the mouth harp, particularly at night.
What's the mouth harp?
Uh,
Is
it's
that
kind
the
of a
thing that sounds like twang 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 twang
yeah,
twang?
it's like a little metal like loopy thing that you put in your mouth, and then it has
Yeah.
like a little
It
yeah.
sounds disgusting. I wouldn't wanna hear that played by a
I mean,
ghost.
when it's done well, I think it sounds cool, but yeah. So they say that footsteps are common, along with sounds of heavy breathing and cigar smoke.
Ew.
And then a few women remain there too, apparently, including one who tucks guests into their beds at night, who's thought to be a midwife, and a cook who's reportedly such a solid figure that she's often mistaken for staff, so like they can see her so vividly.
Mhm.
And they say that they are occasionally shoved and pushed by this vaguely malevolent entity. So this chef pushes people out of the way. I thought that was kind of funny.
That's kinda
But
funny.
yeah.
Okay. I've got this one. Here we go.
Okay.
This was at Fort Monroe in Virginia.
Okay.
So this is the southern fort in Virginia, and it never was captured by the Union. Though after the war, it was used to house the Confederate President Jefferson Davis. So every evening, he was escorted for a walk along the ramparts, where his wife watched from a nearby house to ensure that he was okay. So
Okay.
today, visitors have reported seeing Davis's ghost strolling those very ramparts, while the window from which his wife stood vibrates.
That's weird.
He's also been spotted in his cell while she has been seen, his wife, roaming the grounds in search for her husband.
Aw.
But they aren't the only ghosts. Fleeting orbs and like strange mists have mysteriously appeared, and the sounds of hoofbeats and voices have been heard, including a little girl calling for her cat. And
No.
the cat's name is Greta.
Oh.
And the cat has also been spotted in like a ghost-like form.
Oh, cool.
There's also a lady in white who appears on the boardwalk. It's thought to be the wife of a ship captain who murdered her when he caught her having an affair.
Hey.
Yeah, so creepy place. Lots of ghouls. Okay, so this is the National Homestead at Gettysburg. So it was the Gettysburg Orphanage and a widow's home, which opened in October of 1866.
Oh, wow.
The Soldiers' Orphanage cellar is said to make psychics too afraid to enter the house.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to kids, I don't know why, but I think kids are creepier than adult
I
ghosts,
think it's just the
right?
movies that
Is
make
it?
it that way. I don't
Okay.
know. But yeah, kid ghosts creepy to me too.
Yeah.
These places usually saw much bloodshed, often becoming the final resting place for many of the wounded or sick. So the children's orphanage had just a bunch of various children's, orphans. They didn't
Mhm.
have immediate family left to look after them, and
Mhm.
it was decided the best course of action was to build this orphanage right where the Battle of Gettysburg took place. Because,
Oh, fun.
duh, why wouldn't you?
Oh,
So it
that
was
makes it worse.
that makes it so much worse. So at the beginning of this place's opening, it was very nice, and it was even once visited by Ulysses S. Grant, who was a president,
Mhm.
in a campaign to drum up donations in support of the orphanage. But after the initial headmistress was replaced, it promptly went to hell in a handbasket.
Oh, no.
A wickedly evil lady by the name of Rosa J. Carmichael soon took over the operations of the orphanage and treated these poor innocent orphans like dirt.
Oh,
She
man.
even went so far as to utilize the home's basement as a dungeon. And I
They're
I
kids.
read where she chained the kids to the wall and stuff.
They're kids that lost their parents and their families. Like, what
Uh-huh.
the heck?
This dungeon was used to discipline unruly children, with its history becoming notorious for the makings of ghostly lore. So this place has been on ghost adventures where they tried to communicate with the spirits of Carmichael and the children that were tortured there.
Oh,
And it's been reported that Carmichael actually went as so far to chain again the children to the walls in the basement to discipline them. Apparently,
jeez. See, I don't ever understand why, like, how you could do that to a kid, especially a kid, right?
hmm
Like, I don't care. Like, you have to be the most evil person. Like, kids are, especially like what they went through. Like, yeah, they might act out a little bit. Like, their parents just died. What do you think's gonna happen, right?
hmm
But like, that doesn't. Like, no, no.
So
Oh,
you can go tour this place. If
no,
you
thank
go
you.
to civilwarghost.com, you can do a tour. And on a tour, a gentleman took many photographs in an attempt to capture anything on film that he possibly could. And when he had the pictures developed, there were various orbs and flashes of light throughout many of his photos. And a lot of them were captured in the orphanage's basement.
Oh.
And a lot of sightings at this place have been strange mists that appear to linger in the dungeon.
Mhm.
So, yeah, very creepy.
That's the sad thing too, is like most of the time where you see ghosts is not good places. It's places of despair and torture and like evil.
Yeah,
Right?
all the time,
Yeah.
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 Another thing that people said that they've seen there is the apparition of a small boy who seems to appear from the shadows of the basement's corners,
Oh,
and he vanishes. Yeah, there's a lot. This place is just packed to the gills full of just ghosts.
wow. Well, it doesn't surprise me, honestly, at that
Ah,
point. Yeah. I kind of wonder too. I'm like, even in those days, right? Were there ghosts that they could see, like in the 1800s?
yeah, I would think
Was
so.
there? You
Duh,
think
yeah,
so?
yeah.
Okay. It's like you never. I don't know. I guess like I don't really hear about like 1700s like people like seeing ghosts and stuff, unless it just wasn't written and they're just like, oh, it's just a wisp in the wind or something like that. I don't
Whisper in the wind.
know. Okay, so I do have a kind of terrifying one at the end here. This is like more of like a modern day. I'm not exactly sure what year it was, but it was pretty recent. This
Okay.
encounter happened. All right, so This is in Pennsylvania Hall in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. One late night in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, two college administrators were headed home for the night. It had been a long day at the old dorm, which is one of the few original buildings on campus of Gettysburg College. They decided to go down the elevator. This would end up being a terrifying mistake. So they pressed the button for the first floor and started headed down. When they reached the first floor, the two ladies grew concerned as it sailed past the first floor and headed to the basement. So the basement was used for storage and like full of things like boxes, old file cabinets, and dust. When the door slid open, instead of seeing the storage space that the ladies were used to, they were greeted with the horrifying scene, seemingly from the Civil War. Wounded men dressed in Civil War uniforms crowded seemingly every inch of the available floor space. They groaned and cried out in pain. Some looked like they were already dead, like stiff and dead. Blood covered the walls, the floors, and basically everyone's clothing. So among the injured and dying soldiers, medical personnel were running around. One doctor was performing a gruesome leg amputation with the help of some nurses that were holding the soldier to the operating table. And then the two terrified ladies screamed and jumped back into the elevator, which rightfully so. As they're trying to get away from the scene, they started frantically pressing the button to get back up to the first floor as one of the medical personnel turned to them and like gave them like a sad, pleading look. And he started walking towards them, like trying to ask for help, and then the doors closed.
Oh my
When they got to the
gosh.
first floor, the two ladies ran to the security guard that was on duty, telling him what they had just seen, and he believed them because they were terrified. So then he escorted them back to the elevator to go investigate what they had seen, which
Why would I wouldn't go back down.
See, yeah, it's like you just got terrified, but they went. And then when they arrived back at the basement, it was just a plain old storage room, like before.
Well, good.
Yeah. So that's not the only report to come from Pennsylvania Hall. They say that they see misty soldiers in gray uniforms, spotted pacing back and forth. Shadowy figures have been seen lurking in the tower. One student said that he saw a phantom man in the building's cupola, who waved his arms frantically, like asking for help. And when the student called his roommate to observe the man, the apparition vanished. Many others have reported strange feelings of dread and uneasiness as they walk up by the old dorm, as if unseen eyes were watching their every move.
Ugh.
So the building is an original structure of the school called Pennsylvania College. It was built in 1837 and was one of the largest buildings on the campus. So during July 1863, Pennsylvania Hall transformed into a makeshift hospital, one of the many that was set up during the circumstances, like during the war.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of shattered soldiers in both blue and gray got dragged into the hallways of the dormitory. Dying men bled on the floor as they screamed for doctors and nurses to save them.
So that makes sense that those two girls would have seen like a medical amputation field hospital sort of ghost
Yeah.
scene.
Yep.
That's creepy.
Yeah. Like, could you imagine? I think it was like later at night too, because they're leaving later at night because they stay up
No,
late to work. And you go down. It's the first sign you know something's wrong is you hit the first floor and it goes past it. Right, it
that's
goes to the basement.
that would have freaked me out. That sounds like something straight out of a movie.
I know, right? That's what horror movies are for.
Ugh.
So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm glad we went to college where we did because I don't know if I could handle going someplace like
There's
here
probably
and like
ghosts.
yeah, I'm sure there's ghosts everywhere, but like especially in Gettysburg. Right?
I guess I just to your point, I wouldn't want to see Civil War ghosts.
Yeah, that's a whole nother level of sad and
Mhm.
yeah, yep.
So, if any of you guys want to look more into Civil War Ghost anymore, some sources that I used that were super helpful to me were civilwarghost.com. That's like the easiest thing to remember. Just civilwarghost.com.
Yeah.
It's a tourist site for tours that you can do at Gettysburg, but they have like articles and stuff like that, information on each of the areas that they do tours on.
Okay.
Again, I really like the book Terrible but True. It's got way more stuff than just the Civil War. It's throughout all American history. That's a good book. And then I use blueandgrayeducation.org, which is about the Civil War.
Yeah, I used that one as well, the blue and gray education, and I also used for the last story I used mbhenry.com. So a ghost at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania Hall.
And then
Mm.
always Wikipedia. They have pages for everything. They even have there was some little bit of information on Civil War ghosts, but
Yeah, it's not as like you can research the actual war and like the goings on as much as
mhm.
you want, but like to me it like concretes it more when you hear these stories of like actually seeing
Yeah.
what happened,
Yep.
you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to another Foolish Wanderers podcast. Please share this with your friends. If you guys have any encounters of your own of Civil War ghosts, or if
Or just
any
ghosts.
supernatural, any supernatural event, please email us at fwplisteners@gmail.com. All right, guys, thanks so much for listening, and see you next time.